Good afternoon, everyone, or good evening. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Loud and clear.
All righty, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening, Miss Hunt Daly.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Perez. How's it going?
We
Hello, Emily.
Hello there,
How are you,
Ron.
Emily?
we're doing well.
Hi, Emily.
Howdy.
Emily,
Was that
how are
Dion?
you?
Pretty good.
It's me.
Dion, I can only see your hand. Wave at me.
See it?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Right there. I'm all hands. I'm all hands.
Well, you better be all ears tonight, too.
I'm gonna try. Just don't talk too much.
That's a good one. Get
Well,
the
I'm
award
happy.
for that one.
School is out. No more lesson plans.
There you go.
We still have a few more
Well, you
days.
do. I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's that? What's that saying? No more students, no more books, no more students, dirty looks. Usually they say teacher, but I put students in there.
Dr. Guy.
Yeah. Good evening, Dr. Guy.
There he is.
How you guys doing?
Pretty good.
Good.
Hello, Dr. Guy.
Hey, guys. I'm
Hi,
available.
how are you?
Hey, Dion. ¿Cómo está?
Good, good. Yourself?
Muy bien. Real good. Family too.
Good.
Am I looking at Tayden on the screen? Would you mind raising your hand if that's you? Okay.
No.
I will make you co-host. So when it's your turn, you can unmute yourself. Okay.
Okay, Dr. Martin, when are you moving to Laguna Acma? You know I'm never going to
Well,
let
you
up
moved
on
to
that.
Grants.
Inside joke, huh, Dr. Martin?
I know, man.
Where's Miss? You know, I couldn't print the stuff for the on the Google Drive. It wouldn't. I needed access to print all the stuff that Lorraine sent me. So I don't have any of the documents.
I'm ready.
We'll call the meeting to order at 5:30. Let's stand for the pledge. Pledge
allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
One nation,
under
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call this evening.
Dr. Byron-Champa,
Yes.
Emily Hunt-Daly,
Here,
Richard Jones, John Sandoval,
here.
Donna G.
Here. Adoption of the agenda tonight, Superintendent Perez, your recommendation. Is there any changes to it?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mr. President, board members, everybody here this evening. I the only thing, just to take a note that it's not a change, but under consent agenda, that's a placeholder. There are no consent agenda items this evening. So with that, I recommend that we adopt the agenda as presented.
So moved.
I need a motion.
Emily Hunt Daly, so moved.
Okay, I need a second.
Second, Dion Sandoval.
Roll call.
Dr. Garcia.
Yes.
Yes. Did she say my name?
Yes.
Can't hear.
Richard Jones. Leon Sandoval.
Yes.
Juan Ortiz.
Yes. Adoption of the minutes, May 18th, 2021. Your recommendation, Superintendent Perez.
Yes, sir. I do recommend that we adopt the minutes of May 18th as presented.
Need a motion?
Dion Sandoval motions. Accept the minutes as presented.
Need a second.
Emily Hunt Daly, second.
Roll call.
Dr. Garcia.
Yes.
Dr. Guy.
Yes.
Emily Hunt Daly.
Yes.
Richard Jones. Leon Sandoval.
Yes.
Juan Ortiz.
Yes. Recognitions tonight, Superintendent Perez.
Yes, sir. As Mr. President, Board, this evening we have a student that I'd like to recognize. We would like to recognize. Student is Tayden Begay, and he attends Cubero Elementary School. He's on the art program there under the leadership of Mrs. Woodward. And this student has, out of 124 students, has bubbled up to the top as a #1 to represent the school in the district at Expo New Mexico coming up soon. And so we have here both the student, I believe, and Miss Woodward. Miss Woodward, did you like to say a few words?
Yes, I would. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. During the pandemic, there were certain students and their families who are so supportive, really tech savvy, and in these hard situations, these families thrived. Tayden Begay, a second grader at Cubero, is one of those outstanding students. A petroglyph drawing he made during one of our New Mexico unions is currently featured on the Expo New Mexico, also known as the New Mexico State Fair website. As Mr. Perez mentioned, 16 students had their work selected to be on the big marquee at the State Fair this summer. So during the week of June 23rd, NMPED and the State Fair decided that due to Tayden's outstanding work, his drawing will be on the marquee at the New Mexico State Fair. And Dr. Martin is sharing it. And I think I'll let Tayden take the stage here because he's the real star tonight.
Hi, my name is Tayden Begay.
Aiden, who's your family?
Your mom, your dad.
My mom and my dad,
What's their names? Do you want to know?
Ted,
Floyd,
Floyd,
Begay.
Begay, and Josephine Phillips.
Tell them who your nana is.
My nana is
Everett Garcia.
Everett Garcia,
And Sandy. Baba's is Sandy Garcia.
and my Baba is Sandy Garcia.
So you're staying over here with us.
I'm staying over.
Tell them, no, they can't hear you.
I'm staying with my grandma and grandpa in New Mexico,
Totally.
Torjale, New Mexico.
Nice. Do you know your clan?
Yeah. What's your Indian name? Oh,
My Indian name is Shayak, and my clan is Deer Spring
on the Navajo side.
on the Navajo side.
I think you're a little parrot.
And I'm Little Parrot
Oh, thank you
on the Acoma side.
on the Acoma side. Good. Let's see your picture. Oh, that is
Good. Well,
fantastic.
thank you very much. We really like your artwork. Looks like you're going to have a bright future in the art world, and we hope that you'll continue that good work, and we look forward to seeing some more of it as you go through your years in school. So when you get a chance, we have a certificate for you from the school board and from the district administration to show how much we appreciate the good work that you're starting. So thank you, and thank you for being here this evening.
Yay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Congratulations. I'd like to say a few words. Congratulations, Shaik. That was very good. I imagine that you have an interpretation of what the hand is, but in our culture, hand is very important to all Native people. So keep up the good work. Traditional art seems to be your calling, and we hope to see more in the future. Roy Schatzko.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. President, let's see, Ms. Solis. I think she was accidentally putting her hand up there. Oh, she's clapping. Okay, next up under recognitions, we also have another, we have a staff member this time, who most of you know, an outstanding teacher from Laguna Acoma High School. And Ms. Teresa Butcher, hope she's with us this evening. She is in the running for a national award for excellence in mathematics and science teaching. It's a very exciting kind of award, and I think she's up to the final four in this national recognition. Is there someone here that can speak to the details there?
Mr. Pettit, I don't
Yes.
think that Jackie was able to make it because he's stuck in traffic.
Oh, no.
There was
Okay.
an accident on his way home from work.
Oh, boy. Okay, so Ms. Butcher, or is she on?
There we go.
I don't see her. So this is a little highlight on the New Mexico CAD College and Career Readiness Bureau. They've acknowledged her success. So we're still rooting for her to make it to the top. I believe that again, she's getting close to the final in this award, prestigious award. So we look forward to that, and we also have a acknowledgement and certificate from the Board of Education and Administration, acknowledging that great success for Teresa. She might be on if she's on YouTube. Hello to you, and wish you well.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent Perez. Citizens to address the board tonight. There's no citizens to address the board. We'll move on to presentation. Superintendent Perez.
Okay, sir, Mr. President, board members, as we've been talking about for a few months now, we've had some funds coming into the district that before the pandemic were not expected. We had the first round, the CARES 1, and then we had the second round of CARES 2, and now a third round of funds that's coming in, CARES 3. So a significant amount of money that we that's just now coming into the district, and Mr. Maldonado is going to explain some of the details and how we plan to approach the planning of this money so that we're careful and make sure that it's used well for the students and we spend the money in the best way possible. Mr. Maldonado.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Superintendent. Good evening, Mr. President, board members. Thank you for allowing me to present. I did want to share with you the information about the ESSER 3, the American Recovery Plan funds that we were notified of last week, that we were awarded through a pass-through through the NMPED. So I want to make sure, first of all, everyone can see my screen and see the slideshow there. Are we good with that? Everyone can see that?
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
I'll take it as a yes. Thank you. All right. So let me just go back and give you a little bit of history to make sure we catch everyone up again on this. New Mexico received ESSER 1, the CARES Act, back in March of 2020. They received $108,574,000, of which the district received $1.6 million. And those funds are to be exhausted by September 30th, 2022. Then the second round, as Mr. President mentioned, ESSER 2, the Carissa Act, the state received $435,900,000, of which the district received just recently almost $6.4 million. The third round came in through a passage in March that was awarded just earlier this month, or last month, I should say, late last month. The state received $979 million, of which allocation to the district will be $14,955,000. And again, the district will, of course, have to exhaust those funds by September 30th of 2024. So ESSER 1, ESSER 2, and ESSER 3, those are the three allocations that were received by the district. All total, that comes to $22,088,000 to the district that was not originally planned as part of our operating, nor part of our other funding that came through federal funds. So
You're breaking up there, Mr. Maldonado. I don't know if you can hear me all right.
I can hear you just fine.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay now?
I can hear your voice. Okay, there you go.
Okay, all right. I'll make sure I speak louder.
No,
So
it
60
was the internet.
Okay, so 64% of that funding came through in ESSER 3 funding, 7% through ESSER 1, and then 29% through ESSER 2 funding there. So as you can see, it's a significant amount of money that's coming to the district. So in CARES 1, or CARES or ESSER 1, as you remember, we used primarily to furnish for PPE. We used the funds to respond to the emerging pandemic, to create a safe environment for staff and students, and prepare schools and instructors for the rapid deployment of remote learning platforms, most of which we saw across the board with not only Chromebooks, but infrastructure and smart boards, things like that to make sure. So that's where most of that money went. In ESSER 2, which we have still yet to complete the plan for spending, but proposed uses include outreach technology, CTE programming, staff health, CRLE training, Yazzie Martinez compliance, building improvements and safety and development of academic strategies for a new learning landscape. You may recall I presented this back in April, late April, early May, just to give you an idea, flavor of that. In ESSER 3, the allocation requirements, and this is pretty significant when we look at the amount. Ms. Hunt Daly, did you have a question? Ms. Hunt Daly, you raised your hand. Did you have a question?
Sorry, I forgot to unmute.
Okay.
The ESSER 2 funds was that where we had the money to purchase the laptops for all students?
That came from the CARES money. That was the original allocate. A lot of it, most of it, from the original CARES money. Carissa money, we haven't really started spending just yet.
So we didn't have to use any of our original funding for our district purchase any of these, the equipment, the technology? That,
Out of the GEO fund, is that what you're
yes,
referring to, ma'am?
yes,
Yes. Originally, we did spend some of that money originally, but then we did a journal entry and we changed it to that the funding came from the CARES Act money. So originally it did come from GEO, but we did a journal entry so that we could use the CARES money.
so we were able to reimburse our GO or resubmit. Good, thank you.
That's correct. That's correct, ma'am. Yes.
Excellent work.
Thank you. So out of the ESSER 3 allocations, so this is what the requirements, this is the most significant portion of this requirement, is that the American Recovery Plan Act requires that the local education agencies, that's us, to reserve at least 20% of the 90% that the state's allocating out of the allocation to address learning loss through the implementation of evidence-based interventions, such as summer learning or summer enrichment, extended day, they give a whole list there, and to respond to students' academic, social, and emotional needs and address the disproportionate impact of the coronavirus on, and here's the driving factor, the economically disadvantaged students, children with disabilities, English learners, racial and ethnic minorities, migrant students, students experiencing homelessness, and children and youth in foster care. Now, I remember going through the budget process back in March when I was explaining what we were doing. I met several questions from Dr. Guy, for example, about what we were going to do to address at-risk students. Here, it's evident that in the ESSER 3 allocation that both the federal government and the state have driven funds into the specifically addressing those particular needs. So it's pretty significant. And in a moment, I'll show you how significant that is. So the priorities are, if you look at the basic priorities of the ESSER 3 funds, they mirror very closely to the rulings in the Ozzie Martinez case. So programs for underrepresented student groups, students with disabilities, and achieving student equity through collaboration and consultation. Very heavily driving is the need for healthy consultation and collaboration with all of our stakeholders, including tribal organizations, pueblos, other organizations as well, but very, very heavy in driving that collaboration and consultation. So here's how the funding works in ESSER 3. So the total amount, if you see on the left here, is $14 million. The first allocation will be 2/3 of that total. And we have to then, of course, take 20% of it to towards that learning loss, those objectives that I mentioned earlier in the slide, so about 1.8, almost 1.9 million. And then 7.5 million for other uses in the American Rescue Plan. So a total of $9 million. Then in the second allocation, which is 1/3, 939,000 of that will go to learning loss, and another 3.7 for other uses. Now, the difference here is that much of these funds in the 1/3 in the second round will be grant-based, or they'll be asking for plans and more details on what we want to use the money for. So it became evident that even while we're going to be getting a healthy chunk of money, this $9.3 million, it becomes evident now that moving forward, we're going to have to do a lot of work with planning, developing metrics and some key performance indicators on how well we're doing with this money and how well we are seeing changes in the student environment and student achievement. So some important milestones here, that within 30 days of receiving funds, the state is going to ask us for our safe return to in-person instruction plan. And then the second thing is making sure that we have developed a coordinated effort for evidence-based strategies and tactics to address the learning loss. And then coordination of resources. Now here's where we're achieving really across the board coordination of resources and demonstrating some positive collaboration with our partners and stakeholders. And then developing relevant assessment tools so that we can determine influential strategies so that we're reaching all students. These are some important milestones. And as I was relaying this information to the superintendent, he became keenly aware of the need to move forward with some planning and some organized efforts here so that we are meeting these objectives here. So our next steps, because of that, our next step is, as pretty to wrap it up, is developing teams that are designed to unlock the potential for all students. So a significant amount of money, $22 million in the last 22 months. And we have a lot of work ahead of us to do in terms of planning on how we're going to use those funds. It's going to take a lot of input from a lot of different stakeholders. So I'll stand for questions. Ms. Hunt Daly?
This time I remember to unmute. Okay, as a result of the Yazzie Martinez, the districts were, well, not ordered, but they were told to provide, to fill that gap for the at-risk students. And that would generally have come out of our GO funds. Am I correct?
Well, the Yazzie, so partially, the Yazzie Martinez recommendations and rulings and the judges' rulings there strongly emphasize the need for the state to step up with funding the school districts in order to do that. So they really, really are putting lots of pressure on the legislature and the PED to properly and adequately fund the districts in order to allow them to do this. Fortunately, we can move ahead of that curve using many of these funds in order to do that because, it's been a long time coming, and now we have some resources in order to work to achieve many of these desired outcomes. There's no reason that the district couldn't start now with planning some of those ahead of that curve in anticipation of additional funding coming from the PED. Mr. Perez, would that how you characterize that?
Yeah, so I'd just like to add to that question, or the answer to that question, is pre-pandemic, the state was already ruled against in the Yazzie Martinez effort, and the state was, actually the schools were awarded through the state over 400 million, and that was even before COVID hit. So the effort to meet the needs of at-risk students has been in existence even before COVID, and as Mr. Maldonado suggested, now we have some funds to back that up. Another big part of this is the connection, and so we're trying to leverage everything that we can to make sure that all those students, we've talked about that for the last year on how the students are having a hard time connecting and so on and so forth. But we've gotten to the place where some of those things are almost out of our reach or out of our authority when we're talking about putting up the towers and those kind of things. But I do know that there's efforts being done outside of what we're doing with the state, working with the internet service providers to see how they can get that fixed up so we can reach the rest of the students who we've been challenged in reaching for the last year and 4 or 5 months. So that's all still going. Now, the other part of Yazzie Martinez, in addition to that, is there's a more recent ruling that is requiring, and it's not a suggestion, it's a shall getting our students connected with our electronic devices and things of that sort. So once again, we have the challenges. We're limited on how far we can go with our skills, expertise, and funds when it comes to the towers and so on. So those internet service areas, but there is a lot going on in that area, and it does seem like there's a big sense of urgency on the state side. We as presented here, those are the focus areas that we will be prioritizing as we move forward with all of this planning that we'll be doing for the next several months.
Okay, to clarify that, Mr. Perez and Mr. Excuse
Go
me, I'm
ahead,
sorry,
Ms.
Mr. President. To clarify that, so the state has already, I guess, provided the funding that was ruled through the Yazzie Martinez. Is that what you're telling me? Or are we using, we can use the CARES funding or the ESSER fundings to do that, but I don't think we should allow the PED or the state to be released of their obligation to provide that funding to the school district so that they can meet the rulings of Yazzie Martinez.
No, so Mr. Maldonado, I think, go ahead.
Go ahead, sir. I'll wait for you.
No, I was just gonna say.
I'm gonna be quiet while you talk.
We've got a little lag here. Okay, I was just gonna add that that 400 million that was pushed into the state was not given as a separate account for all the school districts. That was injected into the SCG funds and our GO. Go ahead, Steve. Mr. Maldonado.
Right, and just to add to that, it's not near enough to meet the obligations laid out, Ms. Hunt Daly, in the Yazzie Martinez ruling. And so fortunately, in anticipation of PED
Rose
funding,
up there, Mr.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you now.
Okay, so I was saying it was any money that was injected into the SCG was not near enough to meet the objectives and the ruling in the Yazzie Martinez. So fortunately, these other funds came in just in time for us, as I said, in anticipation of the PED stepping up and determining how they're going to fund these other objectives in the ruling. We can go ahead and start now using these federal funds through the American Rescue Plan, the CARISA, and the CARES Act.
I guess my point is, Mr. Maldonado, even though we got these other funds, I still say the state PED and New Mexico State is obligated to provide those funds, and these other funds should not relegate them from that obligation. They still need to provide the funding to fulfill their obligations through the Yazzie Martinez. Otherwise, they get away with it. So the ruling becomes a moot point if they're not held to the fire to say, now you have to give, like you said, it's not near enough. We got to make sure that they do provide those funds to meet those obligations.
You're absolutely right.
Okay, that's it. So, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Board President.
Yes, Dr. Guy.
The PED has provided the districts with specific requirements related to Martinez and Yazzie, such as the equity councils, such as the readiness assessments, such as implementing a CLRE framework. And I think more of great importance is the 90-day plans that have to be in concert with the Yazzie Martinez findings, rulings. And so I'm trying to make sense of this in a systematic way. And it's important for us to understand, when do we begin all of this? It is June, it's June, and we are gearing up for implementing a budget that is to be approved soon by the PED for the instruction of students this coming year. I believe these monies are embedded into that budget that we presented. Am I correct? The 1, 2, and 3? Mr. Maldonado?
No, they are not. So the operating budget that we presented to the board for approval has the impact aid increases that we received. And there are also through the federal funding, we have, so the operating budget's one thing, that's how we operate and take care of things on a day-to-day basis. And then all these special initiatives, that's through the federal funding. So while we did upload the awards into OBMS, the online budget management system for PED, they're just simply there as a placeholder without, and we've identified some general areas of where we would be allocating those funds, but the specific details of where we're going to spend that for Carissa and now for this. So we've uploaded CARES 1 and Carissa, but not this particular budget. We won't do so until July. So we won't add that until July when we get the bar for that. So while it's embedded in the overall $78 million budget that we uploaded to OBMS, this new ARP funds now, ESSER 3 increases our budget now to 92 million, but they're just part of the federal funding yet. We have to identify exactly how we're going to spend that and then implement those programs. Am I answering your question, Dr. Guy?
Sort of. It's not easy to understand because we don't have a mental image of the district's GO budget to tap into. And so, but we also recognize that you're going to have to code these into specific line items for each of the schools. And so that's going to modify the budget that we will, I'm assuming we will see a revision to the district's budget to recognize these new monies. And that means that each school will have increases in resources such as staffing, supplies, materials, etc., in whatever the accounts. When we talk about these funds, it's not clear to me how we make use of these in unique programs or programs that are developed to address learning loss or those other categories that you mentioned. My thinking is that it has to be understandable for each school of what funds they have and how they're going to and what opportunities they have to address the needs of their students as a whole and needs of the students who are considered at risk by Yazi Martinez, and be able to design an instructional program that may have some new twists to how they want to do things. And we have not determined learning loss. I will be interested in how the PED will help us define learning loss in a quantitative manner. And then in what categories are we looking at? Are we looking at learning loss with respect to English language proficiency, learning loss in terms of mathematics, probably the top two, and then any other kind of factors that relate to achievement. So we have to be thinking of, each school has to be thinking about how best to incorporate these new monies into what it is that they're doing. And their dash plans, I would assume, would be starting to be changed in some way so that we can address the opportunities that are going to be provided to us by this additional money. This is June. When are we going to find out all of the things that need to be done? Can we have another report June 15th? And what would that report, Mr. Perez, consist of? with respect to what we are planning to do. I'm assuming you're saying that, Mr. Maldonado, we're saying that we will be doing a lot of planning. So I no doubt that that planning will be launched or has already been launched immediately. And we would expect an update as to where we're at, so we can enjoy these funds in a very productive way for the kids of greatest in need. Then finally, we need to make sure we have a well-designed relationship with our stakeholders so that they can have a give and take opportunity to share their insights and their perspectives, and maybe even share their ideas about how they can help us in addressing the needs of their children. Just some thoughts, Mr. Perez and Mr. Maldonado and Mr. Ortiz and board members.
Yes, sir. I'd just like to respond briefly. So you're bringing up some really good points and the challenges of our work. So it's a large amount of money, and it's going to take several weeks, if not a few months, to plan it out properly with stakeholder input. And so we are talking about having a systematic way of involving all the stakeholders and having forums and so on and so forth. I don't know how much progress we'll make by the 15th, but we'll definitely be working on that throughout the next several weeks. We're not waiting though. I'd like for everybody to know that our work is continuing. Like our 90-day plans are actually at the point of being finished up. However, there are 90-day plans that can be adjusted as we plan out the larger amounts of money, efforts, focus areas. Those 90-day plans can adjust, but right now they're at the point where they can be just about be submitted. We're reviewing those 90-day plans now. You also brought up like the Equity Council. That work continues and will continue. We have a meeting coming up, I believe, then next week. So all of those kind of efforts are continuing, and we're in a position where we can't wait till the bigger money is planned out completely. So we will continue onward with our academic efforts, and then as the large amounts of money are planned out better, we'll adjust our 90-day plans, and we'll adjust some of the things that we're doing accordingly. I hope that helps them.
Now you have within a certain period of time, within 30 days, safe return to in-person instruction plan. What would that consist of?
Yes, so we have the state's just now coming out with guidance, and it's called the New Mexico Roadmap to Accelerated Learning and Renewal. And at this point, they don't have the complete guidance out on it yet, but it's in 8 different categories that we'll be submitting to the state. Now that can be done in a shorter amount of time. They want to have an idea of what the budgeting looks like for the next school year, communications and engagement, equity, language and culture, logistics, scheduling and extended learning, special education, staffing, and our SEL supports. So that's even on a different track alongside all the other work that we're doing. We do want to have all of our families, parents have a good idea of what it's going to look like when we get back into school in August. And that's what this is all about, the roadmap.
Okay, Mr. Perez, may I ask Reina a question about addressing learning loss?
Ms. Sanchez, are you on?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Okay, in one of the slides that Mr. Maldonado showed us, and you can bring that back up if you desire, Mr. Maldonado. First, the important milestones, it says, number 1, safe return within 30 days of receiving a safe return in-person instructional plan. And then 2, it says, addressing learning loss, evidence-based strategies and tactics. And then the final one is relevant assessment, determining influential strategies to reach all students. those two are more in your area of responsibility and interest. Has the state discussed with the districts the nature of learning loss in that that is to be used to assess such loss? What evidence are they suggesting we should all look at? Report card, grades, state, whatever tests we have, because they're going to have to be consistent with all school districts, telling them about the same thing. And that's one of the concerns I have, is whether or not the state really has a sufficient understanding as to the nature of the measurable nature of learning loss. And what do they consider to be the top key areas of learning loss? As I said it was going to be, could it be English, reading, mathematics? What else? What have you heard?
So as far as information from the state, no, we haven't got specifics from the state. As far as what we're doing for the district, we're starting this summer, we're training all of our teachers on standards-based instruction, standards-based, figuring out if their lessons really are aligned to our standards using the examining student work protocol, looking at actual student work and figuring out those kind of things. Also teaching our teachers that data does not just come from the formative assessments that we do in the classroom, but we can gather data from our classrooms every day. And so I think a lot of that learning loss, especially at the very beginning, is going to be evident by the work that our students are producing and what we're asking them to produce. And so along with the aligned standards, we're going to have aligned assessments. And we can take those assessments and we can compare standards from the current year to standards for next year. And so rather than comparing quarter to quarter, we'll compare standards and see what the loss is from one year to the next, and then we'll address it that way. So every quarter, I'll be meeting with teachers by grade level to go over what they found with our aligned standards to see if they're finding that students are lacking in one area or another, and we'll plan interventions accordingly to that. Like Mr. Pettis said, the direction just came for accelerated learning and teaching and the learning loss, but not real driven home, this is what we're going to do. Next week, we have a meeting for point of contacts with MLSS. And in July, the state is going to roll out some trainings for all the teachers on the multi-layered systems of support for students. And that will take over our SAT process. And so I think that most of what we're going to be doing is looking at students in this lens of the multi-layered systems of support.
You mentioned the word, you said standards-based. That's critical. They mentioned evidence-based, and that's a different, that is something different. It is important for us to focus our strategies and our assessments based upon real concrete performance related to standards. And those standards have been part of are the curriculum of this district. So you are correct, and I appreciate what you just said. And I would encourage you to continue to realize that sometimes we have to think through what is the jargon that is being used and how does it make sense to us, and then use the terminology that is important to us, which is standards-based instruction, that will determine that we will base our learning loss upon the collective assessment by teachers on standards performance, and begin to develop collaborative instructional plans for each school, addressing those needs that are based upon the standards that we have adopted as a curriculum. And the assessment needs to be based upon those standards that we expect children to learn. And it's a common thing that we say is that what you teach, you should test. And so there has to be a strong linkage between what is taught, what we expect children to learn, and did they learn it, and what do we do if they didn't? That I think is very important. And you basically stated what I think is important. When we talk with our stakeholders, we need to have them recognize that we have a system of standards-based instruction upon which we make decisions about improving student performance for at-risk students who are ELD, English learners, who are students with disabilities, and those who are economically disadvantaged, and Native American students. We have to make sure we drive the design of this based upon what we have started with Mr. Pettis in the last few years, couple of years. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Pettis, and Ms. Reyna, I think, don't we have that capability of assessment, whether it be formal or in class, through Illuminate? Because I know that
Yes, we do.
so we can use that as an additional assessment tool, whether it be formal or informal.
Correct.
And then I know that like BIE schools, they use like NAWIA, and unfortunately, public schools used to use PARC, but we can't wait till the end of the year to do this assessment. We've got to have these in-class assessments being held on a regular basis. So that would also be key in making sure that we're following the standards and that they're aligning to the learning loss and using. I'm glad we have Illuminate and that we'll be able to use that data that accumulates. Now, the question I have, thank you, Ms. Reyna. The question I have is for Mr. Maldonado. Are we required to track how much money? I know we talked about the 90-day plans and all this stuff that was going to help with the Yazzie Martinez. Are we required to track the amounts that go into those projects to show that we are following the stipulations under Yazzie Martinez, or is it just we just spend the money and we don't know which fund we're using it or what we're using it for?
No, yes, very definitely. We are required to track and report on what we're doing, what activities are being funded through these through the ARP as well as the CARISA funds. So yes, very definitely. That's why we want to be very thoughtful and very methodical about what we're doing, and so that we can identify how we're spending the money and what metrics we're using to track its efficacy.
Okay, and I also think that tracking that would also help Ms. Reyna use those funds according to the standards that we're using. This learning loss is really going to be hard to track because we really don't have a basis of where they were at when all this thing started. And so we just know where they're not at right now. And so it's going to be difficult. I don't think there's a CAN program out there that's going to allow us to do this assessment. We have to be diligent in developing our own means of assessing. That's why I'm glad that we have Illuminate. I think that we use the program wisely, and Mr. Martin can help with that. Dr. Martin can help with that, is that we can gear it toward what we want it to measure or what we should be measuring. So you've got a big task ahead of you, Ms. Sanchez, but I'm sure you're up for it.
Thank you, Mr. Pettis. I'm finished with my comments. And Mr. Board President Ortiz.
Thank you, Mr. President, Dr. Guy, Ms. Hunt Daly. I appreciate those questions and that insight. Just a couple of words on the evidence-based requirement there. One of the evidence-based strategies and tactics that we're using is just the basis of aligning our system of assessment, instruction, and intervention. So So that's one key piece. So we're trying to be on that in the best way possible. As I also like to add that I like Ms. Daly Hunt's comment about not waiting for the park assessments or the end of year state assessments. We do have the systems in place with Illuminate. But in addition to that, when in our weekly examining student work, we're not quite there yet, that formative assessment, the weekly formative assessment is embedded in looking at the students' actual work. So that's another piece that's that we're developing that's tied into assessment. There, I just had to mention some of those things that we're on our way. You know, we've got a lot of work to do, but I think some of the things that you're bringing up, we're looking at getting good at, and then the very near future. Thank you, Mr. President. Okay. So we've talked about our virtual academy. I'd just like to add that part of what we're looking at in our discussions is bringing options to students, career technology options, and also this is another option that's presented this evening. It's not going to be wide open for floodgates to come into the academy, but we are still at the baseline planning stages of it. But it is a program that we would like to have as an option for students beginning in the fall, in August. And so I have here Ms. Laura Smith, who's been spearheading this effort and taking the lead in the Horizons Virtual Academy.
Thank you, Mr. Pettis. Thank you, board, for having me this evening. For the last couple of months, I've been doing a lot of research and investigation over what online schools, other New Mexico districts are offering their students. Even before the pandemic, we had a lot of students and parents calling and asking if we had an online option for their kids because of something happening in their home that they just didn't meet, or they didn't, not that they didn't meet social settings in the school, but they didn't like being at school and they wanted to continue and they wanted to do well in school, but they weren't comfortable in the physical school. And we didn't really have those options pre-pandemic, even though we were getting asked a lot of, kind of got thrown in the deep end and had to learn really quick what to do. And it was hard for parents, it was hard for our students, and it was hard for our teachers. In April of 2021, we came back to school and only about half of our students came back. We lost several to Connections Academy, New Mexico, and some were still doing the Google Classroom with their teachers, which made it twice as hard on the teachers because now they have physical students in their classroom and they were teaching virtually still as well, which if you ask the teachers, that makes them less effective for all of the students, not just the ones online, but the ones in class. So on the first page of my little presentation, it kind of tells you why we need another option, an alternative option, an online alternative option for Grants-Foley County Schools. Our mission statement is that we provide an equitable education to all of our students every day. And I think offering an online version for students is a way to go forth and help our students that don't do well in the school setting. We already at Grants, all of our students, we already provide or already a member of Edgenuity. We already purchased that as a curriculum, and Edgenuity can be, you don't have to just turn the Edgenuity curriculum program on and let it go like it's a textbook from start to finish. You can move the lessons around and make them standards-based driven. So they're going to learn, these students online are going to learn the same thing in the same time limits with the standards that all the other students are learning. So it can be moved around and I'm not using the right word, but it's gone from my head, but you can move it around and you can make it comprehensive in the same manner that all the other students are learning. We already have a level B New Mexico certified administrator with a master's in educational technology leadership on staff that can help spearhead this campaign. And this will also be individualized small group assistance when required. So those online students that come decide to do that, if they're having trouble, they can make an appointment with that administrator and get small group one-to-one actual help in tutoring, which I think also helps with that learning loss, helps in, with that intervention. What our curriculum does through Edgenuity, it is real grade level learning with real outcomes, a real academic workload, all right, with real assessments. And after investigating, what I propose are real schedules for students in grades 6 through 9. It's what I would like to see happen is a strict schedule for those kids who need that additional time support and skills management. And that helps them build their management skills. Grades 10 through 12 would be a little more flexible. All right, and who is this going to help? It's going to help the kids that don't fit in a traditional school setting. They're homebound or hospital bound for some reason. They need flexibility in their daily schedules. We have a lot of kids who work, who help their parents, who watch kids, watch their little brothers and sisters. And so this would give them some flexibility in how they learn and how they continue with their education and not quit. Seek a more personalized approach to learning, or they wish to develop their 21st century skills that are so important for the career and college readiness. Right, on the next page, and I will leave copies for the board members who are not here, so you can get copies of this little presentation, but that's the proposed schedules that I've put together. They're pretty strict, like I said, for 6th through 9th grade, because those students haven't developed that time management process yet. And so they would still go to school at a certain time. They'd log in with me to take attendance, and then I would be on with office hours and available by phone as needed or by Zoom as needed. And then they could come in for additional help from 2:30 in the afternoon to 4 when I leave by appointment.
Would we have a cap on numbers?
Yes,
And how
because,
would you,
well, we see it as an application process similar to what early college high school does at this point. And in a normal classroom, a teacher throughout the day, a high school teacher throughout the day can service about 100, 125 somewhere, throughout the day. So as an online person doing 6th grade through 12th with the many different grade levels, I just figured about half would be manageable. So about 60 students is what I propose.
and that's from 6th.
That's from 6th through 12th grade, correct.
Another question. Additional staff.
At this point, there's no additional staff at this moment.
So, I mean.
Working on it, but it's manageable. 60 students online daily, I think, is manageable. And again, if they need that additional help, it's the one-on-one help, it'll be by appointment. And I do have a location. We know we have the infrastructure for that. That is all nice and set up. Thanks to Ms. Jones at the special ed department. I'm in one of those portables there, and it's fixed up specifically to have students come in as needed on a base by base appointment schedule. And then I have the big board that if I need to meet with them on Zoom, I have an office phone if they need me by phone, and an office set up. So it's ready to go.
So we provide the Chromebooks.
Yes.
So would we continue providing the internet service?
That's a very good question. If need be, I would
Yeah.
imagine.
So I suspect that most of the 60 would probably have internet service. You know, but we know there's going to be a few. If it's the same proportion that we have district-wide, I'm guessing the
That
best
may.
guess would be 10 are probably struggling to stay connected. And we'll have to address that for sure.
On a case by case.
Another point I want to bring up is the students would be, they still be students at their home school. It's not a new
Yes.
school that we're creating. And right now, like Ms. Smith would be the teacher on record for those students, but they would still be students at their home school.
And you're still able to participate in extracurricular activities.
Yes.
Being
Yes.
virtual.
Yeah.
As long as they meet the criteria for that activity, as long as they're meeting, their grade point average and their grades and pass fail, yes.
Is there gonna be a criteria like on grades in order to get into the?
We would like the students to be in good standing. However, we would just have to look at it and do it by case by case. I've already had 3 or 4 phone calls. And so what I would like to see happen is a committee of not just myself choosing the students, but a committee with a high school counselor from both high schools, a middle school counselor, and then an elementary counselor that could help me in the decision-making process, whether or not this student is going to be a successful online student, online learning, or whether they're just trying to stay online because they don't want to do school. So.
Yeah, there will be a commitment, a contract with the parent signature,
Right.
Pretty strong. And then one of the ultimate consequences would be if you're not fitting in with the Horizons Academy, then you must return to your home school.
And you do have the option to return if
If
you find it not
right.
working out for you.
Correct.
I have a question, Mr. Pettis, Ms. Lara, are they going to have, the students going to have the opportunity to, how would I say, skip a class or acquire more credits for early graduation? Or are we just looking at those students that we're looking at for remediation?
Not necessarily remediation, and any student who would like to go and try and graduate early, I imagine we would do the same process as we've always done, get that approved through the school board. And then we have the opportunity and options to add those classes through Edgenuity and through our online virtual school. So I don't see anything changing from that. I think that can still be an option. The remediation, I think, is being handled in a different manner.
I like it. I think it's gonna work.
Any other
Well,
questions?
We'll be keeping you updated.
Mr. Pettis, Mr. Board President Ortiz. May I speak?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead, Dr. Guy.
There's we're hearing this for the first time. Am I understanding this, Mr. Pettis? Is it the first time we've heard this?
Yeah, we mentioned it a few times throughout the last few months, but this is the first time that we've had it. We've had enough work done that we could make a formal presentation.
Well, there's ultimately the board needs to determine, is this feasible? And there's probably different ways to look at feasibility, and that's what we were just hearing was, how is it feasible? We were hearing basically what it could do. And we need to know, is it technologically feasible? Is it fiscally feasible? Is it legally feasible? Is it operationally feasible? Is it scheduling feasible, for one thing? And then, of course, the questions that Ms. Hunt Daly was mentioning, Board Member Hunt Daly mentioned was who is it for? And that is something that we would want to know. My expectation is that things of this sort are considered to be pilot efforts, because we always want to start something out and then be able to monitor its progress. And then in the months and years to come, we would be able to refine these kinds of things further so that we know exactly how we are addressing the needs. The board's responsibility is to look at the delivery of its adopted curriculum, and that it is going to provide instructional resources to those students who are enrolled in our schools in an effective way. And Rena, that is to me in your ballpark, so I'm assuming you're involved with trying to make an assessment as to whether this is doable and then who is it doable for, and we just were hearing a bit of those at this time. I'm curious more about it, so we need to hear another report as to what it is. It's on my end. I gather from Mr. Pettis' comment is that he's already intending on doing this. And we need to know exactly what is our role with respect to this. And that's something that we would want to clarify in the next few weeks to make sure that we understand the full scope of this. And it's a very interesting, potentially viable option. We'll need to explore this more further. And there might be other options or approaches to take. This might be one for a certain targeted population. There might be another way to address students with other characteristics of needs that could benefit from some of this. And just wanted to let you know that I would expect the board to be updated and would be informed as to what it is that is being asked of us when it comes to expenditure of district funds. And that's where the budget issue comes into play. Be looking forward to hearing more about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Grant. Thank you, Ms. Smith.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to action items tonight. Action item A, consideration of approval of the advisory policy 214-219, second read. Your recommendation, Superintendent.
Yes, sir, Mr. President, Board. So it's the second read, as you mentioned. I do recommend that we approve the advisory policies number 214 through 219 as presented.
Okay, need a motion?
Emily Hunt Daly, so moved.
Gar Shambo, seconds.
Roll call.
Well, you wanted to-
Oh, discussion, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Did you want, Ms. Salazar can do an overview if you like.
Yeah, Ms. Salazar.
Mr. Salazar, summarize, please, quickly.
Good evening, board members, Mr. President and Mr. Pettis. I'll go ahead and summarize the advisory. 215 is open enrollment. All we need to do is modify to allow military families to enroll school-age children prior to their physical presence. 216 special instruction. We just need to post a notice regarding our Ombud Act, distribute information and provide information. On our 17, our board member compensation and expenses. We just need to make sure that we indicate, well, the significant change is that if there's a meeting less than 4 hours, the per diem would be 45. If a meeting lasts over 4 hours, the per diem will raise to 95. And on policy advisory 218, expense authorization and reimbursement, the statute indicates that the mileage rate reimbursements are to be in accord with the Internal Revenue Service. And our last one, 219, physical examination of students. Any new students that enroll after July 1st will be required to provide documentation of a dental examination or a waiver.
Any comments, questions from the board?
Just a reinforcing of the last one. We need to make sure that the parents are fully aware that they need to see their local dentists to get their teeth checked and get it approved. It's a good idea.
Yes, that information will be provided to all parents upon enrollment. They normally call the secretaries to ask for the requirements as far as documentation, and that will be given to our new enrollees.
Thank you, Ms. Salazar. We'll go to roll call.
Dr. Garafano,
Yes,
Emily Hunt Daly,
Yes, yes,
Richard Jones, Leon Sandoval,
Yes.
Consideration of approval of
did the motion pass?
Motion passed. Action item B, consideration of approval of purchase Synergy student information system. Your recommendation, Superintendent Perez.
Yes, sir, Mr. President, Board, I recommend that we approve the purchase of the Synergy Student Information System as presented.
Need a motion?
So move Dion Sandoval.
Need a second?
Emily Hunt Daly, second.
Discussion?
Yeah.
Mr. President, we have some folks here. Okay. Ms. Sanchez, do we have a visitor here to present?
Yes, sir. We have Anthony LaGreca from EduPoint.
Hello, good afternoon, Board of Education.
Good afternoon.
Hello?
Mr. LaGreca, were you prepared to give an overview, or are you just there to answer questions?
I'm available to answer any questions that you might have about the system or anything that has to do with the contract. I'm happy to answer questions. I didn't prepare anything to present, but I am happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. I'd just like to give a brief overview. So, every district has a student information system. And the one that's most popular, that has been the most popular for years, is PowerSchool. Now, many, as the years have evolved, many of those same districts have been moving away from PowerSchool and into something that we found is what appears to be a much more user-friendly and or easier to use. Therefore, we would like the board's approval in switching from PowerSchool to Synergy. It's going to take some transition time, so we'll still be on PowerSchool for probably most of this coming school year, at the same time being trained and adapting to and switching over to the Synergy student information system. So with that, I would entertain any questions.
Yeah,
Questions from the board?
Mr. Board President.
Go ahead, Dr. Guy.
Yeah, the item itself states the actual specific language of the board action requested. I would like to use that as the action item. Approve the expenditure of $137,845 first-year energy implementation fee and allow the superintendent to execute a 5-year agreement valued at $411,981. Mr. Maldonado, is that acceptable?
Yes, sir. That would help us tremendously.
So would the administrative assistant ensure that that is the actual motion?
yes,
Is there any need to restate is Mr. Perez, is that acceptable in terms of the action item you desire?
Yes, sir. I think just for process here, is it acceptable to read this off as the I think we'd probably have to read it off as presented on the agenda, but knowing that it's a more detailed action.
You can add to the action item parentheses to ensure that is the actual, you are actually entering into an agreement as per the agreement. So I'm looking at your motion. It says approval to purchase Synergy Student Information System. It doesn't tell us how much. It just says that we're going to do that. That's kind of makes me uncomfortable. And when I looked at the item itself, it was read this way. Board members, is that acceptable to? Do you feel that it's okay to include the actual financial details in the action item?
Yeah, that's fine. It's public knowledge. So.
Yeah, that's fine with me too.
All right, then, Mr.
Hold on, I had a question. Replacing the Power School, was there provided a cost analysis from Power School to Synergy? Is one more expensive than the other?
Would you like me to
Mr.
answer that,
Maldonado?
Mr. Chris? Yes, of course. We did we not only did we do a cost analysis of both programs, we also did what was more important, well, not more important, but as important was the functionality of these programs and our ability in the new learning platform in the new arena for us to migrate to a web-based or program that allowed both more interaction from the teachers, more interaction from the students, more interaction from parents as well. So when we looked at this, we at first we're going to look at some other modules in PowerSchool, but as we began to ask our stakeholders and our users to do some evaluation, it became clear to us that the Synergy program was more technologically advanced and allowed more user-friendly interfaces. And so as we began to look at the cost between both of those and what it would cost to migrate PowerSchool to become something like Synergy and what other cost savings we could achieve in the future, it became evident that this became a very good buy and value buy for the district. That beyond the first year where we're going to be dual tracking both the implementation of Synergy as well as using PowerSchool so that we don't lose any integrity of data is very important. As Ms. Sanchez was talking with not only Mr. LaGreca, but also with the users, we had a lot at stake. We just turned the switch over and we wanted to make sure that we didn't want to lose anything at all. And so that's why that first year is a little bit more expensive, but moving forward, this actually is less expensive per year moving forward than our PowerSchool is right now.
Okay, another question, Mr. Maldonado. Are we going, when you talk about professional development training, is this going to be virtual training or are they're going to have hands-on? Because I can reflect back to 2013 when I got introduced to PowerSchool.
Yes.
We had like a 2-hour training.
Yes.
And we were over there and some of us couldn't get it. Us old guys could not get it. And she would come over and just punch the buttons for us.
She would hit us on the head.
Yes. And so I ended up learning all PowerSchool by myself for that whole school year. Frustrating, very frustrating. And this virtual, those that have done this Simple K training on the website, that's also very difficult because you don't get the hands-on. You want your webinar, big deal. You can't see the buttons that you're pushing. So are we doing, I'm speaking for the teachers. Are you doing professional training for these guys, for the teachers, face-to-face? Or are we going to do virtual?
Ms. Sanchez, you want to address that question?
I think Mr. LaGreca is ready to address that.
Sure, both of those options are available. So we can do either or.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So points well taken, and I think we'll learn from your experiences of the past. So we need to make sure that we have in-depth training for all of our teachers.
Emily and I can remember that stuff. It was awful. Mr. What is the representative's name again?
Mr. La Greca?
Mr. La Greca, to what extent is the interface between the state's requirements for data uploading compatible with your system?
We are 100% compatible with the PED state reporting. We also attend all the STARS conferences in person. So we'll be there and be available whenever it's needed.
Okay, that's critical because that's the reason why we're doing that. The state wants to know what our data is, and we must have a system that does this easily. But thank you very much. This is the kind of information that we would want to have when we're doing a major project like this. We need more additional information that gives us a comparative cost and performance analysis, Mr. Perez and Mr. Maldonado. Board President Ortiz, I think we should call for the motion.
Roll call vote.
Dr. Garashandel,
Yes.
Emily Daly,
Yes.
Jones, Leon Sandoval,
Yes.
Don Ortiz.
Yes, motion carries. Action item C, consideration of approval to award the Mesa View.
Can we have a few words?
Elementary-
Can we have a few words from the organization's representative? Mr. La Greca?
I'm not finished. Yeah, I'm not
Sorry.
finished yet, Dr. Guy.
I didn't
That's
hear you.
okay. That's okay. Approval for the elementary architectural firm. Superintendent Perez, your recommendation?
Yes, Mr. President, Board, I do recommend that we approve the award for the Mesa Elementary architectural firm as presented.
Okay, need a motion?
Leon Sandoval, so move.
Need a second?
Emily Hunt Daly, second.
Okay, discussion? Superintendent Perez, you got somebody here?
Yes, sir. Mr. Vance Lee.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, Mr. Perez. What we're asking of you tonight is the approval of the award to the architectural firm for Mesa View Elementary School. We'll come back to you in a couple of weeks with a contract. This is just acknowledging that the procurement process is complete and we have found a architectural firm that won the RFP, actually. So this is not a contract, but this is the award, the notice of award for the architectural firm in your packet.
I'm sorry, Mr. President, shouldn't we already have that presented along with our approval? It seems like we're doing double duty here. We're gonna approve the award, then you're gonna bring back the criteria on the reason why they were given the award. Shouldn't it be all together?
Well, right. Go ahead.
For clarity, Mr. President and Ms. Hunt Daly, this evening is determining who that vendor firm will be, and then the next meeting will be the actual contract. So it's a little different scope of work, a little different scope of the item to vote on. I think, and just to add, this is typically the way that it would work, is to determine the firm and then work in the contract in and do that at a different board meeting.
Okay.
Mr. Board President.
Yes, Dr. Guy.
I get a little delay on mine, so I apologize if I'm running over you.
Okay, that's
as I look at the at this, it's not actually a contract. It's just an award that just summarizes elements of a potential contract. I'm not sure. It says 2 counterparts of each of the proposed contract documents will be provided to you by the district for execution. That means that we are going to provide some documents, not drawings. What will those documents consist of that we're going to give them?
Mr. Archambault, Dr. Archambault, and members of the board, Mr. Pettis, what we're acknowledging right now is that there was a winner of the procurement process. And that's really all we're acknowledging right now. Right now, we're also concurrently working with this firm to nail down the contract, get their signature, and then bring it back to y'all. Before we sign anything, we would want your approval on the finalized contract, because there could be some negotiations in some of the total costs there. We just want to acknowledge at this point, as a part of the procurement process, through our business and finance office, through facilities and operations, that we are acknowledging the winner of the bid for this project, which is architectural services. You'll also see that as of this point, the document that you have, you see the split between the state and the school district for a total amount there, a total contract amount that we are proposing to the architectural firm.
You mentioned 5 sets of drawings will be delivered separately or otherwise made available. When is that going to occur?
That would occur, and that's going to show up in the contract as a contractual obligation of the firm to provide those at the end of design development and schematic design. So we're just laying down the framework right now for what we're asking the contractor to do, really in a summarized fashion. And then there is a scope of work that all architectural firms that participated in the bid, there was award language that was the scope of work, and I could read that. You as a board back in October, November, you approved that award, and it had that language in there, and I could repeat it, but you do have that, whatever you wish that I would do there.
Mr. President, Mr. Lee, no, I don't think we need to have it read back, but were we provided a look at the other firms? Usually in a bid process, we're presented with a list of the firms that proposed a bid and seeing their designs, and then we're able to make a decision based on which one is more cost effective and which one is better looking. And I don't recall us seeing any other plans.
Ms. Hunt Daly, members of the board, this is very preliminary right now. There's not a set of drawings from any of the firms. They were strictly in their RFP. They had a technical proposal, and we had 11 firms that sent those in, and we scored those. We narrowed it down to 6 firms to interview and to give us a presentation. And then at that point, one of the firms dropped out, so we were down to 5. And then from that 5, the points from the technical carried over to the presentation, and then they received some presentation points in there, and we ended up with the firm right now that we are asking you to approve the notice of award for. And the reason I'm not saying the firm's name is because you haven't approved the award, and so I don't think it would be right for us to mention their name at this point until we get into until we get past this process, and then we can probably talk about that.
So have we been seeing this firm's blueprint plans in previous board meetings?
No, not that I'm aware of.
So if I can interject, Mr. Lee, from the procurement standpoint, Ms. Hunt Daly, this is just as a procedural move, next step in the procurement process, as the team evaluated the qualifications of the firms, bringing together and evaluating whether what qualifications and technical specs they could bring to the district. And that's where we're at right now, is we're asking the board to follow that procedure in identifying that the team did its due diligence in evaluating the 11 bidders, scoring them and basing them on their qualifications, not on any particular design spec of any sort like that. So that's where we are in this process. I hope that helps.
So we weren't looking at the lowest bidder?
Ms. Hunt
Oh,
Daly,
okay.
members of the board, the way architectural firms are scored under the PSFA guidelines, they are actually basically told what their fee is within PSFA guidelines. And there's not a lot of negotiation going on as far as price. And they don't propose a price within their technical proposal. They are strictly identifying and presenting their technical abilities to perform the architectural work that we're asking them to perform.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other comments, questions from the board?
I think
Okay with
Mr. Board President, I'm a bit more concerned with the presentation of details regarding this. And so we need to discuss, the administration needs to discuss how it can help to illuminate for the board the intricacies of some of these action items. There's some things that we're asking that probably when we go back, we would want to provide that information. And obviously it's a lot of detail, but and there's no way that, well, we could with great difficulty ourselves research back to look at scope of work and stuff like that. All I see in my mind, Mr. Perez and Board President Ortiz, is the image of the drawings that we had. And so I'm thinking of it in that context. And then we know that that there is a firm that produced the drawings, and so we as a board, we would believe that the architectural firm that we're going to award a contract to for the design of it is going to design it according to the drawings that we had seen a couple of months ago. That's sort of like a layperson understanding of what we're doing, and you'll just need to help us through a better understanding of the process that we're going to go through. And you're saying that we are only approving awarding an architectural contract to a firm, and that firm will then be in discussion with the district with respect to the actual drawings, and that will be reported back to the board probably at the next board meeting to say this firm is now going to be engaged in the actual architectural design of the building that we saw, and we'll set up a scope of work related to that. Am I correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Maldonado, Mr. Lee, or Mr. Perez?
Yes, I'd like to add, I think there's a little bit of misunderstanding. Where at this point, this is very, very beginning stages. And it's going to be a long road, as we did with the Blue Water Elementary. But at this point, there are no drawings at all. It's based on the capacity of the firms in their ability to come up with those drawings and the scope of work. As we saw with Blue Water, yeah, they'll go out and take a look at the landscape and get ideas and put them together under the the strict guidance of PSFA. But I think right now, just to reinforce the idea that really no work has been done or even started. All we did was pick a firm that the committee believe might do the best job for us. And then once we've accepted the process and a contract has been signed, then they'll put the pen to paper and they'll put the pencil to the drawing, and then we'll start to see how things evolve from there. But it's going to be a long process, and it'll be several many updates. I hope that gives it some perspective. Thank you.
Mr. Board President, I'm ready to call for the vote.
Okay. Roll call.
Dr. Garashambo,
Yes.
Emily Young,
Yes.
Richard
Yes.
Jones, John Sandoval,
Yes.
Robert Lee.
Yes. Action item, motion carries. Action item D, consideration of approval to award a 3-year contract for a district-wide copy machine. Your recommendation, Superintendent.
Yes, sir. Mr. President, Board, I do recommend that we approve award for a 3-year contract for a district-wide copy machine as presented.
Need a motion?
Garashambo,
Beyond
a
Sandoval,
motion
so moved.
for seconds.
Second, Dr. Guy.
Okay.
Discussion?
Okay.
Questions? No?
Mr. Mulder.
Mr. Maldonado, you have anything?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President, board members, Mr. Superintendent. Our current copier contract is expiring at the end of June. So back in March, we fielded a new RFP to ask for vendors to compete for a new copier contract that would provide our 11 schools and 5 different building sites with a new fleet of copiers, a new service agreement as well. And so we fielded that. We got 8 responses back in late March, and April 20th is when they were received, and our team went to work in evaluating that. We invited the top 3 scores of companies to come in for an interview and answer some more questions, maybe do a couple of demonstrations as well. And then we scored them again, and just in that same process. This is different than what you just did with the architectural firm. This is actually hearing a recommendation from that committee to award a contract to a particular firm. So what's different about this particular year, what we want to achieve here, is that we wanted to really enhance our digital interface capabilities so that any teacher from any room in any of the schools could send a job to any of the printers in their buildings. We also wanted to enhance the availability of color copying for everyone in the district. And we also wanted to then, of course, look to how we can make the best use of the investment in the Teacher Resource Center that you approved last year. And so all that put together, we wanted to look at what services could be available from a vendor for everyone to enhance their availability for services. How could we save money doing this as well? And then how could we take advantage of our new electronic and digital platforms? So the committee is recommending that we award the contract to Pacific Office Automations. I have a representative here, Alex Myers. He's one of the folks who was involved in the presentations as well. And so I'm going to give you two aspects to consider. Number one, we were paying on average about $180,000 a year for current copier services, mostly because the contracts were sort of a hodgepodge or a quilted blanket of all these different contracts, not coordinated. They sort of built on over the years. Here, we want to award one contract, simplify the process for both invoicing, billing, simplify the ability for us to track usage and things like that, and also give and really enhance the capabilities and put more availability and more digital capabilities at the fingertips of all the teachers. So we'll be saving on average about $100,000 a year there. I did break down, it's a 4-year contract that we want to award. We're asking the board today to approve the expenditure of the first year contract of $82,298.81, and then allow Mr. Perez to execute a 4-year agreement with a total value of about $354,718. Mr. Myers, you want to talk a little bit about your company and some of your capabilities and some of the challenges that you have to present?
Yeah, absolutely. I would be happy to. Thank you guys for giving me a second here to speak with you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have, of course, as well. But we're a local company. We're based out of Albuquerque, and we cover the whole west of the state out to Gallup. We're happy to be considered for this contract, and I think we have the technical expertise to keep teachers and staff up and running. We also have the resources to make billing extremely simplified, so that you guys are not spending time kind of chasing around billing issues and other miscellaneous things. So we're looking to streamline everything for you and get the teachers up and running so they can stay teaching longer.
I will say that we did invite many users to participate in this, so it wasn't just a business office decision. We actually had people who were hands-on with this to help make that decision, and they were played a critical role in that. I'll stand for any questions.
Okay, excuse me, Mr. President. I'm going to ask the most important question of Mr. Myers. What is your turnaround time? Should a printer go down?
Sure, absolutely. So we guarantee 4 hours of average response time. You get a call back within 30 minutes of placing a service call. And like I said, our technicians are out to Gallup pretty much daily. So, I mean, it would be 4 hours is average, but you could see response times that are faster than that as well. We try to do as much problem solving we can over the phone so that we're not doing repeat visits as well. So when a machine goes down once, we hope to have it back up the same day, so that we're not wasting time with you, coming back and forth from Albuquerque, because that can be pretty tedious and time consuming.
Are your systems done through computer? I'm thinking of something like Geek Squad. They can fix your
So we do have remote support. Actually, yes. Geek Squad, it's a great example. Yeah, we do have remote support as well. And it's something that we actually showed while doing our presentation too. So if any teacher, anybody that's in the office needs quick help, they can log on and actually allow us to take over their device, and we can help them work through issues, jobs, stuff like that.
I'm pretty sure you know how important, if you've ever been at a school where the printer doesn't work.
Oh, yeah.
It's chaos. It's chaos.
Absolutely.
And frustrating, very frustrating. I've been there both times. So are we looking at Mr. Maldonado? I know I had some frantic calls from some teachers that said they're taking away our printers and we have to print at the main office, or we were told we weren't going to be able. So are we just putting one printer at each school? What if the teacher only needs one copy?
No, ma'am, we actually have 41 printers, and we are negotiating up to 55 copiers available, so that so there's a couple of things we wanted that we told all of the vendors that were critical success points for us. Number one, that there was access to a color copier in each of the buildings, so that they didn't have to so that everyone could get several color copies if they wanted to. Number two, we wanted to make sure that we had the availability to frame out our technology so that any person from any computer in that building could print to any printer in that building as well under this contract. I will tell you that that's what you're hearing is that we want to take full advantage of this new technology, as well as the Teacher Resource Center for the larger jobs. Right now, we did a study and we spend just over about $145,000 a year in replenishing individual toners for desktop printers that are sitting on people's desktops so that they can print one here and one there. And we figured that we really wanted to put some of that money back into availability for student use, so that if we make this as simple and more accessible as possible for teachers and staff, then we would overcome some of those objections, and that's our goal.
Okay, I still think you're gonna get some gripes and moans here and there. Somebody's classroom is way at the end of the campus and they make one copy and they have to walk all the way up to the main building. I used to have to dredge that because mine was in C Hall. And if I needed just one copy, I had to walk all that way up to the main office to get my copy.
Yeah, so we're not taking away that capability 100%. We are allowing the principals to use their school funds to purchase the supplies that they want like that. So it will really be up to the principals. So Mr. Perez wanted to make sure that we did that. So we were very careful to put that in place.
But do all the schools have a budget for that, or are they being asked to skim from other areas?
Now, all the schools have a budget that they can use at the principal's discretion, so they can choose how they want to spend that money.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr.
You're
Steve.
quite welcome. Absolutely.
Mr. Board President.
Yes, Dr. Gunn.
As with the other award, is it acceptable to the board that we include the language of the actual action item requested? It says approve the expenditure of $82,298.81 for first year and allow the superintendent to execute a 4-year agreement valued at $354,718.16. That is what the motion will represent. Am I correct, Mr. Pettis?
Yes, sir.
That being in mind, I call for the vote.
Okay, roll call.
Dr. Campbell,
Yes.
Emily Hunt Daly,
Yes.
Richard Jones, Leon Sandoval,
Yes.
Robert Hughes.
Yes. Action item E tonight, consideration of approval to approve the IDEA application. Your recommendation, Superintendent Perez.
Yes, sir, Mr. President, Board, I recommend that we approve the IDEAB application as presented this evening.
Motion.
So moved. With Garshambo.
Emily Hunt Daly, second. Emily Hunt Daly, second.
Discussion. Thank you, Emily, you got it. Discussion tonight?
We have Miss,
Mr. Perez?
yes, sir, Miss Delise Jones.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mr. President, board members, Mr. Pettis, and attendees of the meeting. I wanted to present to you the IDEA budget as we have proposed it, as we have filled it out. Mr. Martin, can you put the sheet up that I sent you for presentation? Thank you. You can go ahead and make it larger. We're going to be concentrating mostly on the right-hand side. Thank you. I do understand that you also have this in your packet. So as I usually say when we're talking about the IDEA application, we haven't made a lot of changes. We strive every year to spend a majority of the IDEA application on instructional staff for the students. Obviously, we want to also allow some monies for supplies, materials, those types of things. But for our idea B, the 24106, which is kindergarten through 12th grade, you can see there the preliminary allocation of $833,744. The projected carryover from this year is $144,849. And then there below you can see the basic entitlement, which is just adding those two numbers together, the $978,593 on the K through 12. The preschool entitlement fund, which is the 24109 fund, the monies available is $32,953. So this year there was a tiny increase. Usually we have the same or a little bit less, but this year we did have a tiny increase in the dollar amounts that were allocated for the district. As you can see, both of those lines are balanced. There's a 0-0 balance for the 24106 and the 24109. The object 1 in the 24106, where we're spending the majority of the money, $704. I spoke previously, instructional staff. It's also for a small amount is used for supplies. A small amount is used for equipment for students that have specific needs in order to access the general curriculum. But the majority of that is spent in personnel. And the objective 2, which in the 24106, there's $273,787, and that is mostly spent for the special education secretary, diagnosticians, transition specialists, all of those people that support the education of the students. Again, we do allow for, in objective 2, we do allow for work study and the payment of students that are involved in work study. We also allow for training of those specific staff members to make sure that they are staying at the using every opportunity to be the best trained that we can be. In the 24109 preschool, all of that money is allocated to go towards the salary of a couple of different staff members that have a portion of their salaries taken out of the 24109. And basically that's, in a short summary, that's the monies that are available to us in Idea B, and those are the ways that we're going to spend them. I can go into more detail as far as what the other objectives are, but the rest of the objectives do not change the numbers and the dollar amounts in objectives 1 and 2 in 24106 and objective 1 and 24109, and that's how we will be spending our money. The other objectives are more for informational things. Again, I could go into greater detail and with that if you would like me to. I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions from the board? Thank you, Delise. Roll call.
Dr. Gardner Shambo?
Yes. Yes.
Emily Hunt Daly?
Yes.
Richard Jones? Leon Sandoval?
Yes.
Ron Ortiz?
Yes. Motion carries. Consent agenda, nothing tonight on the consent agenda. Superintendent's report.
Yes, sir, Mr. President, Board, the thing on return to school is basically letting you know that we're expecting some guidance, as I suggested earlier in the meeting. Waiting for some specific guidance on the roadmap to re-entering school. It just seems to me that we need to keep in touch with the community and the board and let everybody know that as the situation that we've just come out of with the virus, if it stays on track the way it is, we're looking for a much brighter. So as far as we can tell, we will have be wide open for all students to be back. We're not required to have a virtual option for the students as far as we know this fall. However, as you see, we do have the Cyber Academy option for some students who qualify. We don't know what the protective measures will be at that time. We suspect just from little indicators that I see and judge that we may still have some kind of masking or distancing in the fall. But of course, that's all evolving as we speak. I'm really excited that we're in a much better place than we were a year ago or even 4 months ago. So I do look forward to getting back to some normalcy as we start the fall school year. So with that, between now and then, we'll have several summer school activities. We'll be very busy this summer. But after, I'm gonna let if you would, Ms. President, let Ms. Reina Sanchez talk about some of the summer school activities that are going on. Ms. Reina.
Mr. President, Mr. Perez, members of the board, our summer learning is well underway. We started extended learning the day after the regular school year ended. It's going on at all school sites, and we have about 850 students district-wide that are participating. Beginning tomorrow, we'll have a 3-day STEM camp at Los Alamitos, and all the 6th graders from across the district were also invited to attend that STEM camp. And so there's a big number of 6th graders going over to experience middle school for the first time. So that's exciting too. Summer school will follow the extended learning time for our 2 high schools and our early college high school. And so both of those will focus on credit recovery and advancing in some of the math classes that some of the students are wishing to get ahead on.
Where's your charger?
K5 Plus will begin with a planning day on June the 30th, and then go on until August the 5th. And we have 4 schools that will participate in K5 Plus. That's Milan, Mesa View, Mount Taylor, and Cubero. And they've already started planning for those days as well. We also have summer professional development opportunities for our teachers. We have 2-day sessions planned throughout June and July for the teachers and grade level bands. For 1 day, we'll be focused on the district learning plan and aligning the standards. And the 2nd day will focus on our examining student work protocol and what it looks like, going through practices of that. And I'm really excited to say that our instructional coaches from the district will be the ones presenting all of those sessions. And so they've gone through some pretty extensive training, and with Dr. Matt Williams and myself. And we're excited with the group of instructional coaches that we have and their capacity to train up and support through the year all of our teachers in those efforts. And so that's what we've got going on this summer. It's a busy summer, not much of a break for anybody in the middle of that. And we'll start the year off to a great start. For our teachers that are unable to make the summer training days, we also have days set aside at the beginning of the school year and throughout the first couple of months of school to get every single teacher in the district with that professional development, that 2-day professional development of using the district learning plan and examining student work protocol, so that we're more effective with our alignment and our assessments moving forward.
Thank you, Ms. Sanchez.
Thank you. And Mr. President, board, if I can, Earlier in the beginning of the meeting, we acknowledged Ms. Teresa Butcher and her accomplishments, and I noticed that she got on the meeting now. So Ms. Butcher, just to let you know, if you can hear me now, we're proud of you. We're glad that you're making those milestone successes. And I think I got a chat here. So Ms. Butcher, if you're available, we did acknowledge the success that you're experiencing now. And we did talk a little bit about how you're in the final four and so on, about this very prestigious award. And I can see you now. Did you want to share anything about that?
If you can hear me, my internet's a little slow today.
Yes.
But I just want to say that I appreciate the support of the board. Superintendent Perez did write me a letter of recommendation, and I appreciate that. I had the support of my principal and fellow teachers and students, and I'm just looking forward to, no matter what, I'm looking forward to representing our state and district and my school at the national level. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Butcher. We're proud of you. Appreciate it.
Congratulations, Teresa. I always knew you were up to good things.
Thank you, Emily. Announcements are there for you. Future agenda items, get with me or Superintendent Perez, and I'll recommend for the meeting to adjourn. I need a motion.
Before you do that, Mr. Perez, Mr. Board President, we need to remind the board members about the NSBA
Yes.
conference, law conference.
Yes, sir. Do you have the dates on that?
June 1st.
Okay.
Oh, no, June. It's Thursday, Friday,
Thursday,
Saturday.
Friday, Saturday.
Friday, Saturday, New Mexico School Board Association Law Conference. And I believe you all got the information sent to you.
Yes, she sent it out.
Okay, good. And the other thing, I know that the board was interested in we tried to have the board training at one point. And then we had a few things happen where that didn't come to light. So right now we have a board member that won't be available through June. So what I'll do is Ms. Sandoval will be getting with you all to try and find a date. I think it's going to be moving to July now, that we'll find a day that we all agree on to have a board training or a retreat. So that's all I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Guy. Thank you, Superintendent Perez. Need a motion to adjourn?
So we'll ensemble.
Need a second?
Emily Hunt Daly, second.
Roll call?
Dr. Guy Shambo,
Yes.
Emily Hunt Daly,
Yes.
Leon Sandoval,
Yes.
Robert Lee.
Yes. Meeting adjourned at 7:34. Thank you.